So we talked previously about finding the real solutions to a function. So we're going to review that before we get into what we're going to do today, which is we're going to talk about how to find all solutions. And when we talk about all solutions, we talk about real and imaginary. So first thing, let's talk about review how we talked about on Monday and Friday about how to find the real solution. So the first thing we're going to do with the function is we're going to graph it. Okay. And then the second thing, when we graph it, what are we looking for? We are looking for where it crosses and touches the x-axis. And where it crosses or touches at the x-axis is going to be our solution. All right. So let's talk about what does an imaginary solution look like. So these are going to be different examples of what you may see an imaginary solution look like. All of them have an imaginary I with them. That's what an imaginary solution is going to entail, is it's going to have that I with it. Okay. So, how to tell how many real or imaginary solutions a function has. So in order to tell that, you need to look at the highest exponent of a function. So how to find all the, well, let's go back to this real quick. Some examples. If I have a function x squared minus 1 equals 0, I'm looking at the highest exponent here. Okay, that is 2. So that tells me I'm going to have 2 real or imaginary solutions. Example 2, if I have x to the 5th plus 3x to the 4th minus 5 equals 0, I'm looking at the highest exponent. Let me fix that. The highest exponent is 5, so that tells me I'm going to have 5 real or imaginary solutions. One more, we'll do x to the 12th, 3x to the 12th minus 5x to the 7th plus 8x to the 4th minus 2 equals 0. So no matter what the function looks like, you're still just looking at what the highest exponent is. So the highest exponent here is 12. So you're going to have 12 real or imaginary solutions. Now, so how do we find all the solutions, real and imaginary? Well, we've talked about how to find the real ones. Okay, the real ones are where it crosses the x-axis. So how do we find the imaginary solutions? Well, the real and imaginary solutions, the real and imaginary solutions have to add up to equal the highest exponent. And we'll get into what that looks like in the next couple examples. All right, so looking at this, we know that the highest exponent here is 3. So that must mean we have to have 3 solutions. So when I'm looking here at A, it only has -7/5 and 7/5. I know that cannot be a possibility because there's only 2 answers. D, no solution. Now we've had answers or problems with answers that were no solution in the past, but since we're dealing with real and imaginary solutions, no solution is not an option. All right, so it narrows it down to 2. When I'm looking at both these answers, they both look to only have 2 answers, but you need to be careful. This plus or minus sign, that's key. That tells you it's 35 plus 35i square root of 3 over 50 and 35 minus 35i square root of 3 over 50. Now this looks like a complicated answer, so let me give you a simplistic one. If you see one that's like plus or minus 5, that means you have a positive 5 and a negative 5 as an answer. These just look a little bit more complicated, but it's the same concept. All right, so how are we going to find the solutions to this? Just like we did with the real solutions, we're going to graph it. So I'm going to go to y equals, I'm going to clear it out. I'm going to type in my function, 125 x to the third. Make sure you hit over plus 3, 43. I'm going to hit graph. Looking at the graph, it only crosses the x-axis one time. So like we've talked about in the past, where however many times it crosses the x-axis, that's how many real solutions I have. And where it crosses at is my real solution. So I only have one real solution. So going back here, I need to check my answers. How do I know if it's real or imaginary? Well, if it's real, it doesn't have an I attached to it. If it is imaginary, it does have an I attached to it. So I'm looking here, and I have 3 answers, but none of them have an I with them. So I know there's no imaginary solutions there. So that cannot be a possibility. So I come over here, I got 1 real, which crossed the x-axis, and I'm looking here, and then I have an I in this solution. So I have 2 solutions that contain an I, and that's what I'm looking for, is 2 imaginary solutions. All right, let's do one more. So looking here, I have a x cubed, negative x cubed. The cubed is the highest exponent. So once again, I'm looking for 3 possible solutions. A has 3 possible, B has 3 possible, C has 2 possible. That's not going to cut it. We have to have 3. D has 3. Now, some of you all may be saying, look, well, B doesn't have an I, so that can't be the answer. That's not true. We're looking for 3 real or imaginary solutions, okay? So they could all be real, they could all be imaginary, or it could be a combination of imaginary and real solutions, okay? So don't just assume because it's all imaginary or all real that that's not an answer. That could very well be the answer. All right, so let's graph this, figure out what we're doing from here. So same thing, make sure we go to y equals, clear it out first before you get started. You don't want to make that mistake and have to start over. And hit graph. Now looking here, once again, only cross the x-axis one time. So however many times it crosses the x-axis, that's how many real solutions we have. So we're only looking for a problem that has 1 real solution. This one has 1 real, 2 imaginary. That's what we're looking for. This one has 3 real, not a possibility. This one, 2 imaginary, 1 real. Okay. So now we've got it narrowed down. How do I select which one? Well, we're looking at our real solution here. -5 and 5. Looking at our graph, where does it cross at? 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 5. So since it crosses at positive 5, this is not a possibility. So that means D is our correct answer.